Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
All that applause can't be just for me. For me? Well, I guess so. This is Ted Hicks, Late Night Parents. The Late Night Parent Podcast usually comes to you every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But guess what? It sure ain't Wednesday. It's Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. For those of you that are listening live, and if you're listening live, how are you doing it? Because I didn't promote the show. So to most of our listeners near and far, hope you enjoy this episode. Hopefully we're going to give you the best 60 minutes of a podcast that you could expect from someone who has a limited budget. Well, not really limited. It's extended. It's exactly where I want it to be. But this is Ted Hicks, Late Night Parents. Happy to be with you once again this week. So much to talk about. We have three guests. Dr. J. Faber, Joe Fitzpatrick, and Lee Val. These three people come from different backgrounds. We're going to talk about the aftermath and how a survivor's brains are affected by the Orlando shooting. You know, PTSD is a consequence. Believe it or not, Dr. Joe Faber is going to talk with us. We'll call him Dr. J. He's going to talk with us about the horrific incident that happened and then what happens after, because everyone's a victim. Guest number 2, and that's Dr. J. Faber, will be here at 10 minutes past the hour. At 30 minutes past the hour, Mr. Joe Fitzpatrick, and we're going to talk about, it's a critical topic for parents, kids in sports, and how much is too much. Because, hey, this podcast is about, all of us being parents and how the different industries intersect. At 45 minutes past the hour, we're going to have Mr. Lee Val on to talk about, the Cavaliers, Cleveland, Believeland, all the above. What happens there? They won the title, first one in 52 years. People are excited. We watched on TV or on the internet with, people going crazy out there. Roads being shut down. We'll talk with Lee at 45 minutes past the hour. So those are our three guests. Let me get all the housekeeping out of the way. Okay. So I've told you who I am, Ted Hicks. Late Night Parents is the show. It's the podcast. It's usually on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. As I've already mentioned, it's not Wednesday and it's not 8 p.m. Wednesday at 8 p.m., I will be at Consumer Electronics Convention. They do something smaller, CE event that's going to be in New York, around about 18th Street. So I will be down there looking at the latest gadgets, getting all geeked out about it, really excited about this. So that's where I'm going to be Wednesday night, why you won't be hearing this show live. Maybe tomorrow night you'll hear it and you'll think it's live when it's playing. Maybe someone's listening tonight, but regardless of the fact, that's the deal. That's what's happening. A lot of people to thank, because this is the little show that could, or the engine that would. But before we get into it, ways to find us. LateNightParents.com. Facebook.com/Late Night Parents. Twitter handle, Late Night Parent. You can find me on Twitter as The Real Ted Hicks. Excited to be here once again. Really, really excited. I there's something about the show that still excites me to talk with people and just do what I like to do, connecting with people. But we can only connect to people because we do this with the best media partners in the world. Near and far, I want to thank, the ones that are, available for everyone. We can find us on SoundCloud. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spreaker. You can find us on iHeartRadio. Those are the normal ones. You can find us on Tumblr. But we do it with the best partners. And who are these best partners that I keep alluding to? The best partners in the world are none other than I-95 Sports, NGSC Sports, UNIR1 Radio. What's up, Mr. Price? How you doing? Loving what you do. Love the station. Life Improvement Radio. Eric, what's going on there? Loving what you guys are doing. Thank you for playing us. Arena Sports Network plays us every night of the week, 12 a.m. Ta-da! I'm going to say it once again. Arena Sports Network. Brian Snow plays us every night of the week, 12 a.m. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for believing in us. We appreciate you for what you do. Our friends XRP Radio in the UK, Tiz Shira, thank you for getting our message out in the UK. Really appreciative of you guys playing our show. As I said before, 9-0, The Underground, out there, Missouri, thank you for playing our show all over. We're really, really, really appreciative for what you guys do. We couldn't do it without you taking our podcast and spreading it, across the east, west, north, and south, and abroad. Cindy Conroy, out in New Zealand, thank you for playing our show. As I said, I had the best media partners in the world. They each and every time, and I would be remiss if I forgot AM, FM 24/7. Thank you, Jason and Stewart, for airing us in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Las Vegas, California, Port St. Lucie, Tampa, Florida. I mean, you guys are all over. Really loving the energy. Thank you guys for airing us. So those are the best radio partners in the world. I'm not sure a lot of people can say that, but I know I can. And we're heard on the internet. We're heard all over the place. So thank you. So without further ado, we've gotten past all the housekeeping. Our first guest, Dr. Faber, is going to be with us shortly. I believe I see him in the queue right now. We won't bring him on in about 30 to 45 seconds. Want to thank our friends at audible.com for sponsoring Late Night Parents. Want to thank our friends don'thatetheking.com. Want to thank one of our featured sponsors, Verizon Fios. Thank you for what you guys do for Late Night Parents. Want to thank the Happy Hour Network that allows us to air on this wonderful network. Thank you, Mr. Val, Mr. Vandenberg, as always. Thank you guys for what you guys do and the, I don't know, the comradeship amongst us is wonderful. So we thanked everyone we could possibly thank. I hope I can go to sleep now. Dr. Faber's going to be in. I'm going to take a nightcap, and that's it. But no, seriously, like I said, we couldn't do this without everyone chipping in. Want to thank one of our newest partners, NX Generation Athletics, 575 Westbury Boulevard, Long Island, New York. Wonderful gym. I just had a meeting with them. It is about health and wellness and fitness. I want to thank you guys for your partnership. And also Ask Dr. Michelle, a new segment that's going to be coming to Late Night Parents, hopefully on a weekly basis, where we're going to have none other than Dr. Michelle Reed, who is willing to answer some of your questions. So that is it. It is 10 minutes past the hour. Our featured guest, Dr. Jay Faber, is going to join us. I want to thank Brittany Thomas from newsandexperts.com for working with us. We have the best PR people in the world that work with Late Night Parents. But I'll get into real quickly Dr. Faber, and I'm just going to open up and get ready for 1 second because he's our featured guest for tonight. The article, Dr. John /A.J. Faber, MD. Our topic for the night is the aftermath. I have to get really serious now because we're going to talk about the aftermath and how survivors' brains are affected by the Orlando shooting. PTSD is something serious, folks, and it is a consequence. You know, the murders of 49 people that fateful Sunday morning in Orlando during that mass shooting in the United States history, it was the largest mass shooting and horrific enough for anyone in the country to digest. But what about the 53 or so people that were injured? How do they move on with the rest of their lives? That's a question. How do they feel safe again? And are there hidden changes which have yet to manifest themselves? So with my pleasure, I want to introduce Dr. Jay Faber. Doc, how you doing? Thanks for joining Late Night Parents.
Very good. Thank you for having me on, Ted. I appreciate it.
No problem. We'll get right into the topic of the horrific massacre that happened in Orlando just shy of a week ago. The questions are about PTSD. Question number one, Doc, is for someone that was injured and that survived, how do they move on with the rest of their lives?
Well, great question. And I think half of it, if not more, is just helping that individual understand the physiological response to which they may not necessarily have much control at all to their emotional feelings afterwards. It can become rather complex, although with neuroimaging, functional neuroimaging, I mean, we're getting better at getting an understanding of how to treat these particular people. One thing, just to kind of make it in layman's terms, and I'll use this with patients who've had a sudden acute trauma, is you've got a part of your brain called the amygdala, which is like a fear detector, and it sends out all sorts of signals if we're starting to see something threatening. And then there's a part of our brain called the hippocampus, which is one of our major memory centers. And the two have this interrelationship with each other. So when you have a situation like at this club where you're going, assuming you're going to have fun, enjoyment, dancing,
right,
whatever, and all of a sudden there is a marked change where there's shooting, loud noises, the smell of gunpowder, the sight of unfortunate dead bodies and blood, your hippocampus all of a sudden picks up all these different experiences, puts it in its memory system, and then subsequently associates it with fear and terror, which would be appropriate. The problem occurs after the aftermath. Anytime you walk into an experience where you smell something that smells like smoke, see something red that's not necessarily blood, your hippocampus will then automatically send a signal to your or your amygdala that you've got a threat here. You've got something dangerous. You've got something scary. And so then all of a sudden, the human goes into more of a fear response, which can take on a number of different forms, which you could talk about. But one is avoiding. You stay away. You don't go near anything that looks red or smells of smoke. One more concerning is you become angry. People, situations that aren't threatening all of a sudden become threatening, and then you've got a whole host of other things to deal with. So the traumatized person is left and put in a rather complex situation. Things that maybe 2-3 days ago weren't so threatening, and rightfully thrown not threatening, all of a sudden now they become much more physiologically a threat to the human, to their survival. And hence there's where the aftermath begins.
Doc, I got to ask you really quickly. I mean, I've never been through something as traumatic as that. I mean, it was traumatic for us watching it on TV, the after effects of, all the major networks and cable news networks reporting on it. But for someone in that situation, how would they feel safe again? Like, where do they start? No,
that's a great question. One, the education piece we just talked about. 2, time. The more you are exposed to those same non-threatening experiences and don't have the aftermath of what you experienced in that club. And then 3, I think it's really, really helpful to work with a therapist who specializes in trauma. We've become much more sophisticated in our ability to use psychotherapy in a way to help to diminish that over responsive amygdala. There's a type of therapy called EMDR, movement therapy, and it's really unique, but it works, where you'll have individuals sit down and move their eyes back and forth and talk about the experience while the therapist helps calm them. And so they use that time as a means to decrease that intense association between those memories and the amygdala. Another type of therapy, which is a little bit more cerebral mindfulness-based therapy, can be helpful. It's a type of therapy where the therapist helps you become aware of the painful feelings and potential painful feelings, and then they give you calming skills, helping you live in the present to calm yourself. And then there's the psychiatric piece to all of this. I mean, some people biochemically get to a point where they may need more of a pharmaceutical intervention. Pharmaceuticals could mean medications, but these days pharmaceuticals could also mean the possible use of supplements, things you could buy at any health food store that don't have the same side effects as some of your medications.
Doc, right now there's an estimated 7.5 million people in the U.S. that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder from witnessing or experiencing emotionally traumatic events, such as, this terrorist attack in Orlando. Tell us about survivor's guilt. Could you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, concept. The biggest part is you let's use this instance at Pulse. People go to a club, they go in with 6 friends. This is all hypothetical, and at the end of this unfortunate aftermath, of your 6 friends, 5 have passed away. You are the only one living. What makes me so special that I was able to survive all this? What made me so unique that all my other friends who I love truly and dearly are now gone? And as a result of that, you have a higher likelihood of becoming much more depressed, much more unhappy, and feeling guilt. For those who've been around long enough, the movie Ordinary People, back in, I believe it was 79 or 80, won an Academy Award with Donald Sutherland. A big part of that movie is about survivor's guilt. So
yes.
if people wanted to get a more concretized grasp of what that's like, it's a great movie to watch.
Gotcha. I want to switch gears for a second and say, from a parent's perspective, so this in the wake of the Orlando shooting tragedy, many children were wondering, what happened, and it's even tougher to explain why it happened. What, where's the starting point for that as a parent to explain a tragedy like this to a child?
One, they're going to see it, so to try to hide it or kind of minimize it, I don't think is necessarily the best way to deal with it. Two, I think you have to use terminology that the child at that developmental level they're at can understand. Three, and I think this is most important, after you describe your interpretation of the events, ask your child questions about what they're thinking and what they're feeling. They may have answers, they may have questions, and they may become completely silent. All three ways you want to just make sure that you as parent are actively engaged, especially if it is one where the child isn't saying a whole lot. In those situations, my suggestions typically will be to tell parents that it's okay for their child not to have anything to say because that child may not even know. And so you can use the opportunity to tell the child that, hey, maybe you're not sure what you're feeling right now, and that's fine. Then you can add some of the verbiage. Sometimes people will later get more scared, or they might get more afraid. They might even get angry or upset. They might get tearful. They might want to cry. Mommy or daddy wants you to know if you start having some of those feelings that we're here to talk about it. So you leave the door open to share about the pain. You can't take the tragedy, it's there. But as a parent, you can help take the intensity of that pain and decrease it by having opening, understanding, and empathic ears. You then take the world, which is not safe, and then create a home which is much more emotionally safe to talk about some rather complex and ambiguous issues that we as adults are still trying to understand.
Doc, that was an excellent answer. Thank you so much, because I can tell you, for one, as being a parent, when that situation was happening, and it was kind of like, as it was unfolding, I was watching it on TV, and my 8-year-old was right there with me, sitting there, where I was at a loss for words because the story was still unfolding.
Right, and it's like, and as a parent, you're trying to kind of grapple through your own feelings of what's going on. So it just makes the matter more complex. But as a parent, the thing is, you've got a couple different roles, but you don't have a child. One is to be your child's, friend, build a relationship, and then teach them self-discipline and the relationship piece. Having ears, even when you may not necessarily know what your own personal feelings are, helps take the experience, demystifies it, and lets the child know that it's safe to talk about these things at home.
Dr. Faber, tell us about the Amen clinics that's in Costa Mesa, California.
Yeah, the Amen clinics were located in Costa Mesa, California. For those on the East Coast, there's also an office in Atlanta. Reston, Virginia, and New York City. Dr. Daniel Amen, the founder of the clinics, the clinics began back around 1979. We've been in business some 26 years now. Dr. Amen came up with a novel idea, which is really common sense, is if you can't look at the brain, then how do you necessarily know what to treat? Prior to that time, psychiatrists used a lot of empathic listening skills to try to really get a grasp and understanding of what's going on with the patient's internal physiology. Unlike other medical professions like cardiology or gastrointestinal diseases where you're using colonoscopes or stethoscopes, brains didn't have those same tools available. So Dr. Amen started using what's known as SPECT scans. SPECT scans, it's basically a fancy test that measures blood flow through the brain, and we can see pictures that look at the brain to see where the brain might be getting too much blood flow and where the brain might be getting too little blood flow. Through 25 years of these, the use of these scans in about 120,000 plus patients, Dr. Amen's actually kept all this on electronic data warehouse base, which that in of itself is incredible. But he's able to take that data and then start to correlate different findings to understand where anxious people's brains might be more anxious and where depressed people's brains might be more depressed, and where people who can't focus where their brains might not be working so well or overworking. And then we've been able to use that data as a means to more target-focused treatment for patients. So rather than just listening and taking your best shot from using your ears, we use our ears and our eyes as a means to better focus treatment on helping people. Now, when I first started the clinics, I had been the national medical director at Humana, and of course I'm always interested in outcomes. And I said, well, do you have outcomes? And the only clinic at that point that had it was the Cleveland clinics, and Dr. Raymond says, yeah, we do. And of course then my eyes really perked up. And I said, well, tell me how you're doing. At that point, about 75% of people were showing, considerable improvement. We're now, 2016, those who stay with us, about 85% see considerable improvement through our outcome studies. So the whole notion, and this is why I bring it up, is when you listen and see, the results are pretty good. I mean, you look at, say, the STAR-D study. It's a big study in antidepressants that was done here in the United States. About 45 to 50% of people responded to antidepressants. 35% had a remission, which means your symptoms are completely gone. So when you look at 35%, 50% versus 85%, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. The technique of looking and using that as a tool to better understand brain physiology helps people have less symptoms, and I think more importantly, a higher quality of life.
Awesome. Dr. Faber, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I do want to tell you this much. I plan to buy your book, Escape, Rehab Your Brain to Stay of the Legal System.
Yes.
I plan to pick it up, read it, and I would love to have you come back and we can further discuss.
I'd love to come back, and if you want to, the book I wrote for free, and that's a whole other topic.
Oh my goodness!
Prisoners can't. Okay. Prisoners can't afford it. So if you go to www.drjfaber.com, you can download it for free.
Awesome. Hey, before you go, Dr. Faber, what are the other ways that people can find out about you? Is it drjfaber.com, or are you also on social media? Do you have a Facebook page? So I want you to plug the ways that our listeners can get in contact with you and reach out to you.
Yeah, so there's the drjfaber.com. If you go to Dr. J. Faber Facebook, you can get me. go to Dr. J. Faber on Twitter. You can follow me. You can always go to the amenclinic.com website.
Okay.
And you can learn a lot more about me, about Dr. Eamon and the other physicians and the whole SPECT scan techniques as well.
Excellent. Dr. J. Faber, want to give you a round of applause. Thank you so much.
I don't know what to
Thank
do,
you,
Bob, but thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Dr. Faber, thanks so much.
And we will be yet.
That's good. That's good. We will be in touch. Thanks again for joining us.
All right. You take care. Bye-bye.
I'm loving my Verizon FiOS. In fact, I recently joked that if we move, we have to find a place with FiOS coverage. To my surprise, our family actually agreed. Not only is FiOS the fastest internet service, it also has never been down, with the exception of when Storm Sandy hit us. And indeed, only FiOS gives you the same speed uploading for your files, photos, etc., as it does downloading, as in HD movies. Cable cannot offer you this, only FiOS. So go ahead,
Audible
make a
is
very
offering
smart
our
choice
listeners
with
a free
Verizon
audiobook of your
FiOS.
choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/late-night-parents and choose from over 180,000 audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/late-night-parents. That's audibletrial.com/late-night-parents and get started today. Why Audible? Audible content includes more than 180,000 audio programs from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers.
Are you looking for some sick sports apparel? DHTK designed some of the newest and coolest brands such as Represent, Game Over, and Don't Hate the King. DHTK's vision is to integrate culture, fashion, and attitude that best represents the players and caters to us, the fans. Click on DHTK.com and subscribe to their mailing list for an automatic 10% off your order. If you are a basketball fan, follow DHTK on social media. Visit DHTK.com for more details. DHTK.com. You don't have to be a king to dress like one.
Try listening to the Happy Hour Network on Blog Talk Radio. The Happy Hour Network features live shows such as Late Night Parents with Ted Hicks, Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue with Ted, Todd Vandenberg, and Lee Vowell, The Seahawks Show with Kevin Daggett, and NBA Full Court Press with Danny Thompson. You can also catch podcasts like The Fwat Show, The Earnestly Speaking Podcast, Cinema Savants, and The Tennis Scene, found at blogtalkradio.com/Happy Hour Network. The Happy Hour Network, radio worth listening
host of
to.
Late Night Parents. We call it L&P Live. On Saturdays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, we speak with game changers in the world of sports, technology, education, and product reviews. Why, you ask? Because parents do matter. Saturday, 4:30 p.m., Late Night Parents. We're live and exclusively on 1240 AM WGBB.
I can hear you loud and clear. It sounds like it looks like you're on Skype, but I tell you, the Skype, your connection is wonderful.
I'm actually on my phone, so maybe I have.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited to chat with you. So thanks.
Wonderful. Hey, no problem. Thanks for coming on. I was just getting started to talk about kids in sports and how much is too much. And I was giving my perspective on youth sports, and from being a dad who has a daughter that was engaging in CYO basketball, and then also with Tyro basketball and AAU training. And it was very, very intense, very, very aggressive, the training, and because everyone has that pie in the sky, idea of, hey, my child is going to be the next, and insert the name. So, but I wanted to get your perspective, because this is a pretty critical topic on kids in sports. How much is too much? What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right. We're pretty heavily involved in the kids' sports space, particularly with the project that we're doing out here. So we deal with a lot of coaches, parents, And I think that absolutely in today's world there's a lot more pressure on kids, and I think it's translated to sports. And I think there's a lot of different reasons why that might be happening, but I think it correlates, the explosion of technology, which is great for a lot of things in society, but I also think that it also can be a drawback because there's just way more information, so that it creates a much more competitive environment than when you had, say, when I was a kid. I'm 43, right? So you didn't have access to so much information.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, here in the Northeast, hockey is really big, right? So you'll have mite hockey teams that have all their stats online, and these kids are 7 or 8 years old, right? And parents are keeping track of goals and everything. And I think there's just a lot of information overload, and I think it leads to a lot of just a lot of interaction that you wouldn't have seen previously. When you had more alone time with your kids as a family. If you went back to your house, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't the ability to be on social media 24/7. So I think you had a little bit more downtime than you do today, and I think it's translated into sports. I also think that the other thing that's driving it is there's a lot of competition, and college has become extremely expensive.
Yes.
And I don't think wages has kept up with it. I don't think the people's income has kept up with the cost of college, and that's evidenced by the massive student loan debt that you see in the United States, right?
Correct.
So I think parents view it as a way to get their children an education. So you see a lot of people pushing their kids towards sports to get not necessarily become pro athletes, but that's still, believe me, there's a lot of parents that have the the illusions of grandeur that these kids are going to become professional too. And I think everyone knows the real stats behind it, that it's less than 1% of 1% of 1% are ever going to make it to that level. But I think a lot of it has to do with college. So I think if they can get supplemental income for their kids, they view it as an investment in their kids. So it's definitely a strange time in the when you watch youth sports. But I think there's, on the flip side, so those are the negatives that are driving it. I'll give you one positive that I think is driving the expansion of youth sports. As long as you don't couple it with the crazy parents behind it, I think it's a good thing. And I think that is the fact, again, go back to technology and child obesity, child diabetes, which is a huge problem in the United States. I think that parents are very, very worried about their kids being on, the iPad all the time. And not that it's a bad thing, but, the video games, things like that, the more sedentary type of lifestyles that kids are leading today, because it's easier to communicate via, the internet. Look, I watch my kids and I worry about them being on the iPad at night, right? Even though it's the way they communicate with their friends now. They can be on things. And so I think they view sports as, hey, if I can get them involved in sports, at least they're out there being active. And that is a good aspect of this.
Joe, I just wanted to jump in because you had some key points here. I guess I'll work my way in. The key part is the camaraderie, number one, the physical interaction, number two, actually physically seeing a person versus staring at a screen. You'll take that over any day. The inability for parents to manage screen time for their kids. It's out of control. It's out of control because I can tell you one, I've been in IT for 20 years, and it has to be really in depth to say, okay, I'm going to turn off the internet for these devices at this time. The average dad or mom is not going to know how to do this type of stuff. So it's unsupervised internet usage is another piece. The other thing I was going to bring up, which you made a good point, is, are these youth athletes taught from a young age to be aggressive at all costs? Now, aggressive to the point of, hey, it's like you said, do you have the overbearing parent that says, hey, I want you to get this scholarship because it's going to subsidize the loan, it's going to limit the amount of funds that we are going to have to kick out to include, so that you can succeed and achieve your degree. But also, like you said, the delusions of grandeur. I mean, I look at some of these parents and, the way they're pushing and screaming at their kids, and I'm just like, okay, let's take a deep breath because this is just a game.
Yeah, no, I think it's strange, right? You can't put your hand on it, but I would have to say, I try to think back to when I grew up again. It was just a different place, right? You didn't have, maybe parents didn't have the time. I sometimes wonder what it is, but I do agree it's way too competitive, way too early. I just went to, a Hall of Fame induction thing for the Master Hockey Hall of Fame for a couple of friends of mine, and one of the coaches was the coach of BU, the legendary guy Jack Parker, and a friend of mine named Dave Jensen who played on the Olympic team and played in the pros, and he was inducted. But they talked about the number one thing about the state of hockey in Massachusetts and other sports, and they all universally said it's way too serious and kids need to be having fun. And I don't, you could debate why it's driving it, but it's definitely not healthy for the children. They definitely need sports. Like part of the reason, with the project that we do here and what we're doing at the New England Sports Village up here is to try to bring sports back to what it should be, which is that platform that prepares kids for life, right? Exactly what you said. Camaraderie, you're a part of a team, sacrifice, working within a group, all those things that are really good skill sets that come from sports. But I think it's almost this compete over everything and access to too much information where the parents have just gotten away from them, right? And you can't be pushing kids to compete and be focused on winning at the cost of being a good sport, at the cost of, having respect for your opponents. But that also happens, that's also like what you mentioned. I think it's also a reflection of technology, right? Where there's not as much accountability, where, you have a lot of social bullying, things like that, where it's different.
Yes.
Where, so and I'm not here to, I don't want to be negative about technology. There's incredible things that technology has done for society, and it's unbelievable how far we've come. But there definitely is a social negative to the kids aren't meant to have so much information all the time, and I think sports, it's translated into the competitive nature of sports at young ages. So, we just have to try to get it. Doesn't mean sports are bad. It means sports, the purity of them are amazing, and they're needed more than ever. But I think it needs to be balanced with, what are these kids there to play sports and why? And it's really to build skills for life, because most of them aren't going to go anywhere higher. Majority of them won't even play in college, right? So
it's true.
But I think there's a lot of positive aspects, a lot of things that we could change. And I think it's an interesting time that we're in.
Joe, I want to thank you. Before I thank you, I definitely want to get you back here whenever you're available. I'll work through the PR firm, but I want to get back there with you because there's some core values that you've mentioned tonight that really I want to touch upon once again, because it is about parents realizing, like I said, you can live vicariously through your son or daughter and thinking they're going to be the next pro athlete, or you can have, that reality check. But I definitely wanted you to come back. Also, before you go, I want you to plug New England Sports Village. What's the best way to learn more about it? Find it online, listen to it via social media, all the above.
Yeah, the best place to go is just go to the website. It's sportsvillage.com, and you can see a lot of really great information. It's definitely a project that is right in line with what you and I are talking about, which is trying to create an atmosphere where sports is extremely positive for the family and dynamic in the interaction between the parent and the child. That's the basis of the whole thing. And I think with the stuff that you're doing, on your show is incredibly important. So, yeah, I'd love to come back anytime and, keep up the good work.
Joe, thanks so much. I want to give you a round of applause.
All right.
Joe, thanks so much.
All right, take care. Have a good night.
You too. That was Mr. Joe Fitzpatrick. We're talking about the youth sports, kids in sports, and how much is too much. Got to have Mr. Fitzpatrick back on to discuss part two of the conversation. But in the queue, we have none other than the CEO, COO, CMO, Vice President, you name it, Executive Vice President of Marketing, Mr. Lee Val, who's going to join us. But the key thing, Lee joins us from time to time because he's the boss. He checks in on the show, and we kind of take it there. But tonight's topic is something a little bit different. I mean, millions of Americans or people around the world watch Game 7 of the Cavs and Warriors, and something happened in Cleveland. So I thought I should get someone who lived in Cleveland at one point in their life to talk about what it really means. So, ladies and gentlemen, none other than Lee Val. Lee, how you doing?
I'm doing well with that intro. I thought you were talking about Todd, but I'm happy to be here as well.
Not Harley. Lee, as always, thanks for coming on. It's at the top of the show. I always thank the mythical Mr. Vandenberg and Mr. Val, VMV. So it's good that they can get to our friends get to hear the actual voice. So Lee, something happened on Sunday night. That curse that was broken, the emptiness is that glass that was empty is now full. Cleveland is a winner. I thought it was apropos to have you on since you lived out there. You understand the culture. And I think from here, I'm going to decrease and allow you to increase and tell us about Cleveland sports and what it meant to win that title on Sunday night.
Yeah, well, it meant the world. Thanks for having me on, first of all. And it really meant the world to Northeast Ohio because, it's one of those things where when LeBron was coming up, when he was growing up in high school, and he became the draft pick for the Cavaliers, Cleveland is not his hometown. It's Akron. And I think that's the important thing is that it's not just Cleveland. It's all of Northeast Ohio that is able to celebrate this Cavs win. Now, it's been 1964 since Cleveland won anything. He's the new Jim Brown of Cleveland or Northeast Ohio at this point. And, my daughter still lives in Strongsville. I have ties to Northeast Ohio. I did live there. I lived there when the Indians were good. I mean, this was a team when they opened their new State Progressive Field is what it's called now. But, they sold out every game for years and years and years. This is a fan base that loves their sports, and they deserve it. They never left the Cavs. They never left the Indians. They never left the Browns. The Browns left them. So this is a fan base that really, truly deserves to have a winner. And to have a winner led by a Northeast Ohio native is extremely important.
Yeah, it was something special when the prodigal son came home 2 years ago. For all the haters that are out there, and I'm going a little bit off script, but all the haters that are out there and have had something to say over the past 13 years, this guy is a supreme athlete that I know of has made one mistake, a marketing mistake, where he had that funny-looking shirt that looked like a picnic table, when he was talking about he's taking his talents to Miami, to South Beach. Other than that, I see someone who has totally been a role model, who's been leading the way, all the above. I think I saw today a quote on Sports Illustrated where Jim Brown said, Cleveland needs to get this guy a statue. Get him one right now for what he's done. But there's the other side to it, Lee. And, there's a side to it when your city or state or your favorite team that represents you in your geographical area wins a title and people just get a little bit out of control. Like with it being that long of a drought, what were some of the byproducts of the happenings that went on during the celebration?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, talking to relatives that live in Northeast Ohio, there's unfortunately byproducts of everybody who ever wins a championship in North American sports at this point. There's riots and things like that. You didn't really see the riots in Cleveland, but you did see people, jumping on police cars and jumping on ambulances and things like that. You know, you don't see the whole news concept of this, all the stuff that's happening in Cleveland. Stuff happening in Cleveland, but overwhelmingly, I think that the reaction to the Cavs winning is just joyful. I mean, they did, you know, my ex-wife, Patty, who I still get along with, she mentioned that she grew up in Cleveland, and she mentioned this was the first time that she had ever seen Cleveland downtown just shut down because of all the celebration that was happening. I mean, that was just joyful celebration, all the people going out to the airport, which is just south of Cleveland, you know, to welcome the team back. Yeah, is there bad stuff that happened? Yeah, but there's bad stuff that happens every time. I think overwhelmingly, I don't want to make this negative. It's been a very joyful experience for just Clevelanders and Northeast Ohioan residents overall. I mean, it's such a great thing for that region, which has suffered through some really bad management of the Browns, and the Browns leaving, and then the Browns coming back, and really bad management of the Browns. And then, you know, the Indians kind of rebuilding again. They were really good in rebuilding, and they're getting to the point now where they're pretty good. Just the region overall industrially suffering for a long period of time. This is great. It's just such a great thing for Northeast Ohio. You know, and people feel poo-pooed there, I think, overall. And again, I was a resident there, and I know the mentality that kind of goes into not only just their sports teams, but, you know, we're both 45, and what are the jokes? The jokes are, oh, I used to live in Cleveland. That's a joke. But this is a great thing for the region, honestly, and I don't want to make anything negative out of what happened as far as anything that would have happened. This really is just a joyful moment for Northeast Ohio.
Hey, I want to add in a piece here. There were some comments made by, I won't mention her name, but she's the wife of a star player on the Warriors, about this thing being rigged, and, you know, they apologized and everything else like that. I will tell you, if it wasn't rigged, then you knew about the foreshadowing, because the fact that we're going to meet up in Cleveland in August on the 13th to go to an Indians game to do the show in a live bar in Cleveland, I mean, I don't know. You must have had the inside track. I should be coming to you for Mega Millions or something like that.
Well, you know, LeBron did say, hey, when I meet you in Cleveland after we win the championship, and this was 2 months ago. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's funny because, you know, was there a lot of talk about how this thing is rigged, and you've got Steph Curry's wife tweeting it out, and a banished NBA referee. I mean, could you make the arguments? Could someone just say, oh, you know, there's an argument that could be made for the whole thing is rigged, but it's so ridiculous, because what does the NBA get out of the Warriors winning or Cleveland winning? It doesn't do them any good either way. It does ABC some good, but it doesn't do the NBA any good. But yeah, I mean, we will be in Cleveland in August broadcasting live, and I guess at this point, Ted, we've got to be wearing some Cavs World Champion shirts, right?
I think I told you I ordered an Indians jersey, a Jim Tomei Indians jersey, but I guess we should be wearing some Cavs gear down there, or Cavs T-shirts. I mean, maybe happy hour / the Cavs are the winners, or don't hate the king, or I don't know. It's something that we have to put together, but time is running short because it's going to be August before we know it. Blink our eyes, it's going to be July 4th.
Look, sorry to interrupt, but there's a reason maybe the Nikki X Happy Hour, the Happy Hour Network shirts are the Cavs colors. I'm just saying. Maybe it was a premonition.
Like I said, one person says it's rigged. You have already put together the blueprint. Other than that, so tell us, we hear your voice all over the station. I happen to have the opportunity to share the mic with you and Mr. Vandenberg on Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Tell us what else that you're working on, all the different outlets that you're on. You know, hey, plug yourself, Lee.
Sure, yeah, well, absolutely. I have my one call a day from the prison, of course, which is fabulous, and I appreciate this being that one for today. Yeah, and baseball, beer, and barbecue, which I'm just the dweeb, and then luckily we have Ted and Todd on to be the real stars of the show, and that's every Saturday morning on the Happy Hour Network. I won't be on this Saturday, so it'll make the show even better for you guys. And then next month, of course, we have we're really starting weekly again with the Seahawks show, which is a big show on Happy Hour Network. Yeah, we'll start that back in late July when training camp starts, and I'm looking forward to that. But I really appreciate you being on. I mean, really the greatest show we have on the Happy Hour Network is Late Night Parents, and I'm just fortunate to be asked on at any point. So I do really genuinely appreciate it.
Oh, stop. I tell you, it's like, as I said, it's every once in a while, every now and then, you get to work with people that you really respect, that are genuinely funny, and are also astute. And like I said, I had that. So it's most of our listeners hear the show on a Saturday, or they hear it on a replay, or they listen to it on Blog Talk or iHeart or one of our affiliates that plays it. But I get to listen and watch and type and text this ongoing show that goes on all week long, where we're texting, we're talking about different topics, and it really, really, really is refreshing. So I want to thank you for the camaraderie and for being who you guys are.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, this part is sponsored by Adam Silver, who sponsors all our programs. And, I'm just kidding. I really appreciate being on, Ted. You're always great. And I agree. It's great working with people who you like, and I genuinely like you and Todd. So it's an honor to be involved with you guys.
Thank you so much. And we're going to close it out, but guess what? We're not closing it out with music. We're going to close it out just the way we started it. So we're going to close it out with the audience. Lee, and always, thank you for everything, folks. Thank you for once again listening to the show. And we close with...
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
Tired at work today? You need a 5-hour energy shot. Didn't sleep too well last night? You need a 5-hour energy shot. Energy for work, energy for fun, even some energy for the gym. If you're tired from too much lunch, try something that packs a punch. A great tasting 5-hour energy shot. You'll feel alert, energized, and ready to go. Now's the time for 5-hour energy. For more information, go to 5hourenergy.com.